Come on down, you guys. You got to make it known. It's Wednesday. The way to make it known is you got to hit me in them comments because I have no idea what we're talking about. I just had this urge to go live. I put on a shirt for you people, okay? What do you mean, you people? Hi, Amy Lynn's the first comment. Amy Lynn, see? 2 first names, the first comment. Destiny, fate. Which, you know, may bring us to talk about free will. Diana's in Lisbon. Sue in Arizona. Good to see you. Oh, my usual crew of awakened lovelies. I don't even know what that means. Amber, spending my lunch break with you. Oh, that's awesome. I love it. Can you guys hear me okay? I'm always fiddling with shit, so you never know. Amy Lynn's got the, you know, Ozzy Osbourne, man. So I've been listening. I've been going through Apple Music, getting my nostalgia list on, listening to all kinds of crap, you know, crying, just sitting in my studio with my headphones, just weeping, you know. I wanna swing from the chandelier. You know, what'll make you cry faster than Sia? Or, I guess that's why they call it the blues. I'm on my hands anytime with you. Can never understand a word Elton's saying, which makes it better. Because when you do know the words, you're like, what? Like hunting the horny back toad? What does that have to do with anything? Esther says, you have a sexy brain, Doc. I know, right? It's got so many gyri, and sulci. So hot. Susan, guys, I just negotiated a better deal for my colleagues at work meeting. Woo, me, bwahaha, who knew? Dude, that's awesome. And this is, okay, all joking aside, like, you know, like, this is the part of the wealth gap, the pay gap between men and women, purportedly, is the fact that women may well just be more conditioned socially to be agreeable, to stand up for themselves less, ask for things less. Because the paradox, like, if you ask for a bunch of stuff, then you're labeled as a bitch. Whereas if you're a guy, you're just expected to. If you don't ask for stuff, you're a total puss. So the societal conditioning's right there. And there's probably some, you know, actual inborn component to that. But that said, if you can stand up, be nice, and push for yourself and your team, then you're the best of all things and you're going to rock and roll. So that's really awesome, man. I'm a total pussy in negotiations. I'm just like, whatever you guys want, sounds good. Oh, also, I fucking quit. And I'm going to go make videos on YouTube. So that's my trump card. Unfortunately, I don't use it as leverage. I just leave when it just gets bad enough. Judy, here in San Jose, what about talking about opioids and the impact of the opioid crisis? I just watched Netflix, The Pharmacist, and I cannot recommend it highly enough. He recognized the crisis at the turn of the century. Yeah, I mean, look, I remember clearly in the late 90s, early aughts, being taught at Stanford that pain is the 6th vital sign. If you don't treat pain with opioids or something aggressive, you can get sued and you're committing malpractice, that people with real pain won't get addicted to opioids. And that's what pharma was telling us, right? Purdue and all these people, based on God knows what. And we bought it hook, line, and sinker because, you know what? I hate to say it, but we're actually decent folks who don't want people to suffer. We also don't want to get sued. So killing 2 birds with 1 stone, helping pain, not getting sued, no brainer, right? And then opioid epidemic. So who's really fundamentally to blame? Well, it's multifactorial, but it's a distinctly human delusional thing that the United States uses 80% of the world's opiates. Does it have 80% of the world's intractable opioid sensitive pain? No, we're fucking addicted. We're numbing emotional pain. We're numbing shame. We're numbing unworthiness. We're numbing the fundamental energetic root of the delusion of being human, which is that we are actually a separate self navigating a world that's trying to kill us. That's the fundamental root delusion, and it's simply not true. How do I know this? Just investigate your own experience. Try to find the self that's apart from the world, and all you will find is thought, belief, image. And then so what's behind that? What's actually experiencing your world? Look there. What's the sense of I that you've always had, that's been there since you can remember? That I. Look for that and see what you do or don't find. And in the collapse of the false self, the sense of a one apart, comes the freedom of knowing what you actually are, which is beyond opioids and beyond non-opioids. It's beyond all the things. It's untouchable. It's like a mirror. Anything it reflects, that's fine. It doesn't change the mirror. Mirror is unmoved, silent, still, eternal, like that. That's you. Isn't that nice? You could say it's a relief, but for who? For the thinking mind? For the sense of separate self? Oh, I'm glad I'm not a separate self, says the separate self. This fundamental delusion is still there. You have to keep looking, keep investigating, keep relaxing backwards into what you are by looking in experience right now. There's no other time to do it because there's no other time. There's only this. And listen, if some of this sounds like I'm trying to convince you of something, in a way, these live shows are my practice. I'm convincing my separate self to relax. And it works really well, actually. Because being with you, I'm going to put my phone on Do Not Disturb because all kinds of people texting me at once. Being here in the energetic presence of alive, even though I can't see you, I know you're there. I see the comments, but I can feel it energetically. When I'm pointing like this to our true nature, I'm also pointing for the sake of my conditioned energy pattern, because it's sitting here eating popcorn. It doesn't exist in the way that we think. It's an illusion. It's an appearance, but it's also energetic. It's a kind of a confirmation in consciousness that thinks it's real. And we see through that self. It's a fundamental case of mistaken identity. We think that we are this body and this mind looking out at a world. And that can be seen through. But because it's got so much momentum, it's got so much energetic presence, this delusion, this confirmation in consciousness of self. It's not a thing, it's a process, selfing. It takes repeated energetic disruption to get it to relax. And again, we're just talking using words about something you can't really talk about using words, but here we are. We got to use words. We got to flap our mouth holes. And Diana says the culture in the US fosters separation. It does. It absolutely does. If you go to like Asian countries, there's a sense more of community, like Japan was like that, but they have their own kind of suffering because they picked up a lot of ideas from the West about success, economic success, and that kind of thing. And it creates a kind of a workaholic achievement, worthiness, shame kind of culture. America's had that for years. The pursuit of happiness. The Constitution doesn't guarantee happiness. It guarantees the pursuit of happiness. In other words, continued delusion, the pursuit that you think you're not happy now, that you think that you aren't enough. You're never enough. You have to become. And boy, it's a recipe for a great economic engine. It's a recipe for lots of inventions. It's a recipe for a lot of stuff in the relative dream world that looks quite successful. But look inside any given American, they're working a whole bunch and they're not very happy. They're obese, they're unhealthy, they're depressed, they're anxious, they're on pills, they're on opiates. So why? Because there's no pursuit of happiness in that way. Happiness is the understanding that you are always and already perfection, showing up as this simultaneously. So then you live from that realization. It's a non-conceptual realization. And there's kind of two types of people, I think, temperamentally that may have different luck or grace in terms of waking up to their true nature and the unfolding of that. One type feels intuitively that life is, forces outside them are arrayed against them, and that the universe is fundamentally a hostile, indifferent place. And it's a constant fight to find security and love and acceptance and worthiness and all of that. And that's totally understandable given how humans are conditioned. And I think some of it is inborn. So this kind of basic lack of intuitive trust in how things unfold. This is not the kind of trust that develops in response to conditions in separate people. Like, I trust that person. Oh, but that's a conditional trust. I trust them because they show this series of attributes and behaviors that earn my trust. What the trust I'm talking about is a kind of a precognitive trust. It's a deep, unspoken, non-conceptual belief that everything is ultimately happening exactly as it should, and that the universe is fundamentally okay, benevolent, and unconditional love in some way, even when it feels terrible in the relative sense. And it's people that have that fundamental operating system that can have a stressful event, can go to war, can undergo serious trauma, and they come out with a growth mindset. It's more that, okay, that was supposed to happen. It was terrible. I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but here I am on the other side of it, and I gotta continue to live because all these things, you know, the way we express it in Hallmark greeting card terms is everything happens for a reason. Now, I don't think everything happens for a reason. It's more this intuitive knowing that everything happens exactly as it does, and it can't be otherwise. And that's perfection. That's love. That's acceptance, because there's only one happening. There's no person apart pushing and pulling on the happening. There's just life. So that intuitive trust in life, in truth, to be what it is, allows the next requirement to unfold, which is surrender, which is a knowing that even when things are hard, you're going to not resist the hardness. Or if resistance arises, you're going to notice and allow the resistance too. And this kind of trust then is what allows people to die into the moment, to surrender into their own unfolding. In the awakening journey, which we can only call a journey from the standpoint of the mind, which means it's not true, but this is how the mind would experience the non-experienceable, there's a surrender. Everything happens for a reason. When you go through the emotional shadow work, you're not doing it. Emotions are arising. When I talked about like listening to music earlier and crying and all of that, I wasn't joking. Like suddenly there's a compulsion to put on headphones, listen to music, and suddenly strong emotions are there. Well, okay, if I had the attitude that I think I used to have about life years ago, which was you got to fight against it. You got to resist what's happening because it will try to kill you. Like life is not on your side. This is not, not okay. I need to make it okay. If that compulsion would have arisen, I would have resisted. If I would have listened to the song and felt emotion, I would have repressed it. Because fucking it's a work day. There's shit to do, right? Okay. Now, something clicks and suddenly that non-conceptual trust happens. For me, that trust happened because I had non-conceptual knowing of reality. Like, where it's like clear, everything is perfect. It's beyond clear. So, strong emotion arises. Everything wants to be what it is. Everything is what it is, and it can't be otherwise. So I allow it. There isn't even a me allowing it, but there's a kind of a energetic relaxation in the body that allows it. So the next thing you know, you're crying listening to fucking Chandelier or Paparazzi by Lady Gaga. Why am I crying listening to Paparazzi? Well, who knows? Something in the melody, something in the perfect harmony of the universe is causing this emotion to be expressed. Maybe this emotion that's been knocking on the door for a while. Come out. I just want to be seen. I don't want a story told about me. I don't want to be resisted. I don't want to be pathologized. Oh my God, you're sad. Don't feel this. Take some Ativan. Have a Xanax. Here's some opioids. Here's a fucking Vicodin. Are we fucking out of our minds? Like, it is exactly what it is. Even the Vicodin addiction and the Xanax addiction, actually. But would that even start if we were allowed to be as sensitive as we are? If feeling those emotions wasn't branded as wrong or to be resisted, if feeling physical and emotional pain was actually just trusted, like this is okay. It gets back to that idea. It's not an idea. It's a knowing, an intuition, a deep love in the heart that says everything is okay and as it should be. Even when on the relative it's intolerable, even that. So you act consciously accordingly. It just happens and you trust it. So those two types, you're not stuck in either one, actually. You can backslide and you can move into the trust, the intuitive trust in life. And it's necessary, actually, for real awakening, liberation to occur. It's a true surrender. That's what that trust is. It's surrender. Knowing that everything's going to be okay. Not in the way the mind thinks okay is. In the mind, it may be okay as having a nice car and a big house and adoration of people and romantic love and okay in the sense that it's already perfect. Trust in life to show you what's happening, what it is, what you are. David says, Z-Dog, I have a question from you from outside the box. Do you have any knowledge of wilderness therapy for psychological and behavioral therapy? If so, what is the feelings and thoughts on it? It's a last resort therapy for many families and parents to be able to have to trust and surrender to the recovery process. Yes. I don't know. I'm not an expert in this, but I've talked to people who are. And there's many different ways to do this. But this idea of, like, I met a guy who's an IT guy in Alaska when I went to do my talk there. And he told me the story about how he leads groups of high school kids that may be having trouble into the wilderness in Alaska for like a 5-day trek. Their devices don't work. So already you've taken away that social pressure and that addiction component. They go through the withdrawal and then it's just like, okay, and now they have to help each other to survive. And they inevitably come out the other side of that. They were strangers even before, just in love, unconditional love, open, vulnerable, surrendered, crazy shit sort of spoken about. So I think it works. It's very similar to all other concepts of surrender. You give up this idea of a separate self pushing and pulling against reality and you just allow. And it's very tough. If you've seen the documentary, The Work, I don't know if it's on Netflix. It might be, but it's about emotion work in prisons. I think it was San Quentin. And Angela's done a lot of talking, Angela DeLulo, on this. This idea that you take these hardened criminals who've done terrible things, murders and rapes and horrible things, and you put them in an emotion circle and allow them to express all this repressed emotion. And the things you see come out, it's like a monster inside them that's been sitting there, that it's the act of resistance that creates the violence, the expression of separation and rage. It's not the raw emotion, but we're taught to repress and fear the raw emotion. Yeah, Jim says that wilderness stuff works. I totally believe it. Barbara says, decent food, shelter, and health are my only concerns, but even those can be a struggle to attain and retain for some. That's true. If you're way at the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy and you're struggling to survive, this kind of stuff can be more of a challenge, but truthfully, sometimes that kind of surrender is forced on you by adversity like that. And then life just begins to flow and things just seem to start to click in a way. Because again, there's often a resistance component, whether you're born poor, born rich, or born rich and then become poor, or vice versa. Often there's a component of resistance to what is. That's conditioned into us. It's millions of years of kind of human struggle, even before we were humans. Oh, Joy, I'm so sorry about your son and fentanyl. I mean, it's beyond heartbreak. And we did this, society did this. I interviewed a young nurse who's a mother who lost her son, found her son with a fentanyl overdose, thought it was MDMA. And now she's on a crusade to prevent this from happening. You know, and our kids are suffering so much in this achievement culture where they're so isolated, they're on devices, they're not actually out having sex, doing drugs. They're like at home doing this, like this. You know, in my day, you would just go out and take the risks. And that wasn't perfect, but boy, at least you did it with other people. So there was a connection. And now it's dehumanizing. Let's see. Jim says, unfortunately, we've taught people that medicine can rescue everybody and everything is someone else's fault. Have some self-respect and take responsibility. That's how you pull yourself up. Well, you know, it's like the entire society is a collective expression of our internal delusion. This idea that we're the victims of external circumstance. Now, the other side of that coin is that we control external circumstance. That's another illusion. There is no control. And by knowing that, we allow a radical acceptance and surrender, which means the way we act actually comes from a place of radical, unconditional acceptance and love, which means already then responsibility seems to show up. Kindness and compassion show up. They're not something you have to work on. There's something that show up radically, naturally when you know there's no separation between you and other. There's just the perfection of this moment radically unfolding in and as a deep mystery. The mystery of your own being. Like, again, it gets back to who are you? What are you? Even this, where are you? Not, I don't mean physically in geography, like, oh, I'm in California. No. Where are you? Where is the you that's looking through your eyes? Is it behind your eyes? Is it in the body? Is that where you are? Where are you? Are you the entire room, the spacious knowing of everything that's occurring? Or are you something even beyond that? Another way to say this is, what is looking through your eyes right now? What is seeing? What is actually, and you'll have thoughts, oh, my brain is seeing this and it's creating an image. No. Who is aware of that? Where is the eye that sees through your eyes? Try to find it. And throw away anything you find that is a thought, is an image, is a pattern of energy. Because guess what? If that were you, when you go into deep sleep and that disappears, you still exist. So what's the you that's present in deep, dreamless sleep? What's the you that sees through your eyes during a dream? What's the you that's seeing through your eyes now? Is it the same you, the same I? And this is not conceptual. You need to look. And I'll give you a spoiler alert. When you look enough, ultimately, this thing called awakening happens where you suddenly are only what you are. That I, that sense of awareness, is all there is. It's all there's ever been. And it's the same I looking out through all eyes. This is what is pointed at in most spiritual traditions. In Christianity, you can call it Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Father is the being, that I, isness, I, the awake awareness that is everything. And the Son is that showing up as this, as all of this manifestation. And the Holy Spirit is the love, the energy that moves between and as God and Son. And ultimately, all three of those things are the same I, the same isness. Mystical Judaism talks about this. Mystical Islam, Sufism talks about this, points at this. Of course, Taoism, Buddhism, Vedantic Hinduism point right at this. Maybe these great world traditions actually started as something directly pointing at reality and eventually are turned into all kinds of other things. But don't believe that. Look in your own experience. You're the microscope. You're the scientific instrument to look for what you are. Nothing else can do it. We don't have an electron microscope to find the self. You have to turn inwards. Find the subject of your experience. Yeah, Diana, that description of Christianity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, in those Christian denominations that have the Trinity as part of their sort of teaching, it corresponds one-to-one with the ancient Hindu Vedantic teaching of Sat, Chit, Ananda. Sat is being, Chit is consciousness, it's being in motion, and Ananda is translated as bliss, but really it's that energetic flux. It can feel like bliss. It's the unconditional love of being, of nothing becoming something as the same no thing, emptiness. When people say emptiness, when the Buddhists talk about emptiness, they don't mean what the mind puts together as emptiness, like blank. They mean close your eyes and notice the formless awakeness that's there always, that all this energy is arising in. The energy itself, the body sensations, are empty. They have no substance. They have nothing you can pin down. You can't put it in a petri dish. It's empty of any abiding nature. And yet, here it is as an appearance, radically intimate, closer than close. That is the non-duality, not two-ness of reality. Reality is emptiness and form, two sides of the same coin. God and Son, Father and Son. Sat Chit Ananda, being, consciousness, bliss. It's been talked about for millennia by people who do nothing but turn their attention inwards to look. We call them sages and mystics and prophets, but that's all they're doing. They're humans who are doing this. Brahma, Shiva, Vishnu is quite a threesome also. John Malone, exactly. Brahma is that being, the sort of Godhead. And Shiva dances the world into existence, the manifestation, Maya, the illusion. And Vishnu's just got a cool name. Judy says, when I was in college in the 60s and 70s, we knew we could trigger rats at a pleasure center so they would keep hitting that pleasure trigger and die from lack of doing anything else like eating. Now marketers have figured out how to do it to us, and it's rather frightening to say the least. Oh yeah, it's this Skinner box of Pavlovian response, dopamine addiction. Social media in particular has hacked our limbic system in that, so that we get the slot machine pull of refreshing your feed, your email, the emotional validation of getting likes and shares and comments, the triggering of anger when there's in-group, out-group, apparent strife. It's all right there. Let's see. I think the comments, there we go. Ooh, suddenly people have stopped commenting. There's still 200 odd people on a weekday, middle of the day. See, don't tell me that we aren't desperate to see truth. Like, I started this channel as a doctor doing doctory stuff, making fun of doctory stuff, trying to transform healthcare, this, that, the other thing. That was what we did. We have funny music videos. We do Doc Vader. We rant and rave. And there's 2.5 million people on Facebook that follow this channel. And now we're talking more about this in the setting of all that, but still it's this. And notice on a weekday, 248 people tune in to be together as what they are, which is the same thing looking out of each of our eyes, listening to this voice. That's pretty remarkable. There's a draw, it's a kind of desperation to reconnect with our true nature that never left us. It's just apparently obscured by egoic process, selfing, this idea that we're somehow separate from all that is. We are all that is. We can't even say that. We can't say we are all that is. It's a paradox because there's no we. There's just all that is. Showing up like this, showing up as a concept called we in the mind. Showing up as the mind, which, by the way, there's another practice. Look for your mind. Can you find it? People are like, my mind is crazy. It's always racing. Okay. Where is it? Show it to me. Find it in your experience. Where's mind? Oh, there's all these thoughts. Is that mind? Those are thoughts. Those are appearance. So where is this mind? Sometimes the mind looking for itself can stop the mind. And then what's there when the mind stops? Are you gone? So are you the mind? Whatever that is? Do you experience a body in deep sleep? Do you experience a mind in deep sleep? But is there a sense that you didn't disappear and die? There's still a presence? What is that? Ramana Maharshi, the famous Indian sage, once said, that which does not exist in deep sleep, deep dreamless sleep, does not exist as any reality. It's an appearance. Reality is what is persisting in deep sleep. That awareness, beingness, empty, brilliant, perfect, immovable, silent, still, infinite, beyond the mind, unfindable by the mind, because the mind appears in it, as it, whatever this mind is. Maria says it may be desperation to have a highbrow excuse to procrastinate. I like that. That's much more valid. I'm probably projecting onto it too much. Um, hey, PA Bob. I love dreaming too. Actually, I don't. I don't love dreaming. I find it very disorienting. I like dreamless sleep. Oh, thanks for the stars, Anne. We haven't had stars in a long time. I'm gonna hit like on that. I don't even know what stars are anymore, but when people send them, I get a little jolt of dopamine because I'm like, oh, someone loves me. That's what the mind does. It's awesome. Yeah, night terrors suck, Sarah. Yeah, no fun. No fun at all. All right, where are we at? I have to pick up my kid today. So I was telling people on the other Facebook Live I did from my phone in my backyard the other day that like sometimes like living in the San Francisco Bay Area, having to drive your kids back and forth to school, 2 different schools, multiple times during the day, dealing with other people that are so like Bay Area mind identified, like refined egos, like they're separate selves that have gotten all the validation. They're generally successful and they want their kids to be like them. And they want to, they think, oh, if my kids are successful, then I'll finally be happy. Even though I've gotten all the success, it's not enough. It has to be that the kids are successful. So they're going to all these activities and everybody's jostling in the pickup line, trying to get their kids and get them to their next, thing that they've got to do. And there's all this shit going on in their head about work, and they have to hide the fact that they are successful by driving a something like a entry level Tesla that doesn't look very fancy, even though it costs $70,000, and they're putting out this energy in the world that's just like unworthiness, shame, don't look here, self-hate, and then you throw me in that mix, and I'm like feeling everything around me, including in me. I'm sitting in the pickup line just going, fuck, this feels terrible. Big smile on my face. This is fucking awful. Oh, we are a mess as a people. Yeah, it's really something. Driving my 2012 Camry white hybrid. It's a lot of pressure for kids, Doris. It is. I keep telling my kids and they don't believe me because their friends won't allow them to believe this. I keep telling them, guess what? It's going to be okay. It is. It really is. It took me 50 years to understand that it's truly going to be okay. And yes, you do have to work if you want the security of the physical realm to be there for you. But you don't have to fucking kill yourself. And you do need to actualize who it is you are, not who we think you are. Because honestly, if I'm being totally honest, I don't care what you do. As long as you're doing what you do. It's you. I really don't care. You're good kids. We've beaten you into shape with our own delusion. Now it's time to unlearn all that delusion. They don't believe me. They're like, nope, you didn't get there doing that. I'm like, fuck. Where am I? By the way, they think, this is hilarious, by the way. My wife is like, associate professor, radiology residency director at Stanford, big shot, working full time, doing all that. Of course, she doesn't care about any of that. And so my kid, she went to Harvard, Stanford Medical School, all of that. And my kids look at her like literally she's a goddess, like she's beyond, right? And which is exactly correct. They look at me like I have an intellectual disability. Like they really think, my kids actually think I'm dumb. And I think it's so funny because often when they ask me stuff, I'm just like, oh, because I literally don't care. And they think I'm like, I need help. And because I do what I do now, where I'm not like going in and seeing patients anymore, and I'm not taking call every fourth night, and I'm not living that sort of kind of thing, they see what I do, and I do what I feel is the right thing to do in any given day. If I want to go live today, I go live. Then I do other stuff, and then I come, then I go do a talk, or I don't, whatever. And they're like, what do you even do? They can't process it, because in school, it's all about, how do I get into college? How do I go? What profession am I going to have? Like, what am I going to do? And they're just, because they can't wrap their head around what it is I do. Like, they come and do a live show with me, and they're like, this is what you do? Like, it's really funny. Sometimes my wife has to tell them, your dad has done all this stuff. And they're like, yeah, but Mom, you've done more stuff. And she's like, not really. We both went to Stanford together. We did. And they can't grasp it, because again, like, the conditioned mind is just like, well, that can't be what, wisdom or success or whatever looks like. Because Dad's actually kind of happy. Of course, Mom is too, because she's got a lot of equanimity now. She's just like, pfft. But if she could wave a magic wand and not work at all, she would. It's just, there's a lot of feeling that, like, the expression for her is, this is something she's called to do, which is beautiful. Martine says, hi, Z-Dog. Yes, caught you live watching from Belgium. Oh, welcome. What time is it there? Yeah, they are pretty well grounded, Doris. The kids are pretty good. Sue says, I'm picking up a 14-year-old boy and it's 114. Oh yeah, Arizona. Max on the air conditioner. Love that little dude. Yeah, their kids are the best. I got to pick up my 12-year-old in just a little bit. Risa says, it's like when people say to me, you must love working in the NICU just holding babies all day. Yeah, we do more than just hold babies all day. Exactly right. It is. It's funny. There is, if I feel into it, there's a subtle egoic component that arises in those situations where I can feel it, because so many years of trying to prove that you're worth something. Doesn't matter how successful you are, you're always trying to prove the next thing. Yeah, I'm a Stanford doctor for 10 years. Oh, okay. Oh, I got into UCSF medical school and then Stanford residency. Okay. Yeah. And now I'm making YouTube videos and I have all these views and oh my gosh, I have all these followers on Facebook. Oh, we started a clinic and we're trying to change medicine. Oh yeah. And our partners got acquired by Amazon and now they're going to like influence the future of healthcare. Great. Wonderful. And you know what? So what? Like, does that make you happy? It's just a constant treadmill of trying to prove that you're okay, that you're worthy. Like, you're already worthy. You're already okay. It's already perfect. And if that stuff shows up, great. If you're called to do that, wonderful. But really question, like, what is it you're doing it for? You got to feel into it. Like, even this YouTube thing now, it's like, it's a big part of my identity. I call the whole thing a YouTube thing, by the way, even though we're on Facebook or whatever. Maybe I'll put this up on YouTube. It's a big part of my identity recent years, like COVID, people come up to me on the street. Thank you for what you did during COVID, this and that. I just had Monica Gandhi on talking about that. It all feels very tight, like it's some kind of identity until it doesn't. Until it's like, well, that's not what's happening right now. Right now, I'm doing exactly this, whatever this is. Just so happens I'm doing the YouTube thing right now. But, who's counting? But notice I do it not very frequently these days. It just shows up when it feels authentic. And I have a supporter tribe of a whole bunch of people that, we do live shows. We get together. We're talking about things we all collectively care about, including awakening stuff, realization, our true nature, that kind of thing. And that's a pretty special group. And so that's kind of evolved over the years. So when that feels wrong, then we do the next thing. So it's kind of like that. Hello, Raina says, are you going to move to Japan since you love it so much being there? Just curious. I would do it in a second. Here's the problem. I was talking to my friend Suzanne, who was on our show, the Suzanne Non-Duality on YouTube. I was talking to her about this, and we were talking about the allure of these kind of places like Japan, where things feel so deeply connected and spiritual, and there's so many advantages, like beautiful public transport, better food, longer lifespan because you walk a lot and you eat good food, and there's sense of connection. But the difficulty comes in, does it feel like home? And part of home is language. I'm 50. It's going to be a hell of a hard time for me to learn fluent Japanese to where it feels like it's so effortless and nuanced and that communication is seamless. And so that would make it impossible to relax. Like going to a restaurant is a stressful adventure because of the communication stuff. So maybe one day they'll come up with like a Babbel or something that just turns the phone into an instant communicator, in which case, yeah, I would be already gone. I would not be here. This is, I love America. It's done wonderful things for me. I love the people. I love the individualism here. It has its downside for sure. But going there, I was like, yeah, but this is really more me, especially the food. I love the food. Like even their Italian food was better than Italian food I get in the Bay Area. And I'm like, okay, these guys are just better at eating. In my opinion, it's all subjective, right? By the way, if you haven't seen it, I did a 3-hour and 20-minute travel video about our Japan trip. It's on YouTube. So that's if you really want to go deep into the dad slides. Check it out. Judy says, I have an online friend who just moved there with the military. There's a lot of interesting aspects to Japanese culture. They apparently are a much greater throwaway culture, especially with plastics, than even the US. This is true with plastics. But the way they do it, there's no garbage cans. So it's incredibly clean, and I think they use a lot of incinerators. So there's a lot of work to be done. Also, within Japanese culture, I've heard a lot of things like they're not nice to each other. Sometimes there's a lot of judgmentalism, a lot of hierarchy, still a lot of sexism. They're definitely like, not a melting pot, to say the least. It's an island culture, Yeah, Vicky, Haiti, like these developing countries in particular have a very deep spirituality. When I went to India when I was younger, you feel it. It's pervades everything. Yeah, I would move to Tuscany too, Thomas. That was a beautiful. When I looked at Tuscany when we went there back in 2006, my wife and I, before we had kids. I remember thinking, oh, this place feels exactly like California geographically, has the same climate, the same mountains, the same type of foliage, this kind of Mediterranean climate as the Bay Area, but they didn't fuck it up. Like it's got hundreds of years of history. The architecture melds in with the landscape. There's not just suburban sprawl and garbage everywhere. And the food is transcendent. Again, it's a culture of like, eat locally, eat well, not a lot, just eat well, and walk everywhere. And it really is beautiful. Really, really better in many ways. Yeah, it's live, Jacob. Judy says, I worked for a Japanese CO in the 80s. I don't know if they still have that insane work culture where men would work for 12-hour days, 6 days a week, and after work would go out to the geisha bar with their boss. Yeah, it's like that in Korea too, but it's just like there's a culture of like work. And you can feel it in Tokyo. It's very powerful. You get into Kyoto and it's less so. And then you get up in the mountain towns and it's like non-existent. Or it's definitely a different feeling and much more spiritual. It's time for me to go get my kid yet? Let's see. There's still 200 people hanging out on a Wednesday. All right. Ask me a question. We'll do a quick Q&A. So hit me up with a few questions. We'll do some quick Q&A and then I'll bounce and get my kid. I really love these sort of kind of casual inexplicable lives. They're really a lot of fun. Oh, thank you for the stars, Hellerina. I'm going to hit like on your comment. Yeah, that's interesting, John, about the Japanese and privacy. It's a very reserved kind of vibe there. I kind of like it because, you know, the truth is, so I'll tell a quick story. And I've said this before, I don't love humans. Hear me out. I don't like making small talk. I don't like typical human conversations. They feel like delusion and just nonsense noise, like thought stuff, like consensus reality being constructed in real time, like a lie. I'm not interested in it. And I think I never really have been, even though I've had to play that game and I'm very good at it. Thanks for the stars, June. And Vicky. And so the other day I was walking in downtown San Carlos, which is where our studio is. And it's got this nice little quaint downtown that just drips affluence. And it's really quite boring. But I like to sit there because they got a Pete's and a few other things down there. Every now and again, I get recognized by someone who's really sweet and nice. And so it's no big deal. And often I can sit and just meditate on a park bench with my coffee, or I can take a walk slowly, that kind of thing. Yesterday, I sat down on this park bench and I was sitting there and I was really in a nice flow state of presence. Had my coffee, and this guy sits next to me. He was talking to someone else, and then he sits next to me. Very well-dressed, well-groomed, elderly guy. Like, looks like, you know, like almost like he's going to a golf club or something. And he just starts talking my ear off. He's got the local newspaper, and he acts like we've known each other forever, but not in a friendly way. I'm going to tell you all the things I'm going to tell you like we're familiar, but you don't know me. And so he's like, you know, this is the thing. You know, that guy says he's going back to the East Coast. You know anything about the East Coast? I'm like, yeah, I was born in New Jersey. Oh, Jersey. You know who's from Jersey? Frank Sinatra. You know Frank Sinatra? He was an asshole and a really good guy at the same time. And here's why. He knew all the mobsters, like, you know, Sonny Capistrano, and he's naming all these fucking Italian names. He's going on. And, you know, this is the thing. The Kennedys, that's why Kennedy was assassinated, is the mob, because he told the mob, you know, Joe Kennedy used to run alcohol during Prohibition. And he had a deal with the mob, and he said, okay, you've helped my son become president, you know, and Jack Kennedy, he'll protect you guys. He'll look the other way. So what happened? Robert F. Kennedy starts, you know, indicting all these mobsters. So what happened? They off him on the, you know, grassy knoll and the whole thing, you know, and of course, you know, that's how the mob does it. It's just poof, and you're dead. It's just like that. So anyways, what do you think about Newsom? What do you think about Newsom? You think Governor Newsom's doing a thing or what? You know, here's the thing. Okay, I worked in sheet metal, and it's a non-stop fucking stream of consciousness. Like, and I'm sitting here with this coffee, and there's a part of me that's just fully expanded out to include the entire, you know, block, and he's just a part of it. And so I'm super present for this guy, which he picks up on energetically, and it just falls into the gravity well of that. And it's just going and going and going and going and going and going. And I'm thinking, man, what a unique form of suffering to be up in your head that much, to be that alienated from true being, to come to a street corner and talk to a stranger in this way about nothing. And it actually made me really feel a lot of love, like for him, like, you know, and then I started talking to him more and getting a little bit of his history. He's 79, couldn't be a day over 65, has had multiple stents, like has all kinds of, you know, medical problems. I didn't tell him I was a doctor. He's like, so what did you do? What do you do? And I told him I was retired. Because that usually shuts people up. But he was like, oh, you know, but what did you do before you retired? And I'm like, you know, I kind of dabbled in healthcare. And he's like, healthcare, let me tell you about doctors. And the funny thing is, you know, he had the usual kind of elderly white dude racism. He doesn't know, like, my parents are from India, and he's looking at the paper and he's like, look at these Indians. Look at these Indians. He's like, these fucking people, They're gonna take over the world. I tell you, they're gonna have an army like 1 billion people strong. Them and the Chinese, you can't trust them. They're gonna take us over. All right? They don't care about us. They don't care about American values. These people. He kept saying these people. And I was just feeling into that, going, that's just pure like fear and ignorance. And maybe he's not wrong, because if the Indians did decide to raise a massive ground army and take over the world, it'd be they're a nuclear power. They have a lot of bodies. But, so, all this is going on. And Susan says, was your coffee pumpkin spice singularity? Yeah, it was. It was the total singularity of that. And I don't know. It made me think again, like, because then when I walked away, I was like, it's just fucking my luck. Like, I go to be alone and I can't be. And then there was that basic trust that arose to pull this thing full circle. Like, that was exactly what was meant to happen for him and for me and for the whole block and for the universe. That interaction, that bizarre interaction. And to follow it up with one last story, I told you I'd take questions, but no one's asking questions, or I missed them. Last night, I walk on a kind of cross-country trail out near my house, and it's like, miles of trail. And I do this walk like now every evening if I can before the sun sets. Once the sun sets, the cougars come out. And that's just the middle-aged women that you got to look out for. I'm talking about then the actual bobcats come out. And they close the trail, 30 minutes after sunset or something. So I'm out there walking by myself, and we've had dinner, and I just go on my walk. And it's about 4 miles or so, 4 to 5 miles, depending on what I decide to do. And it's great. It's a meditation for me. Usually I'm just very present. So sometimes when I'm walking, the trail is wide enough that I just close my eyes, and it's a kind of act of faith. You just walk. Walking is just happening. Walking. And you open your eyes and the world comes into being. The world of form comes back into being, and you close your eyes and it's formless. And it's pretty safe because there's just like grassiness on either sides and shrub. It's out on the mountain, but it's pretty well traveled, and you're not going to fall off a cliff or something or hit a rock or anything like that. So I'm doing this yesterday. It's dusk. The sun is coming down slowly. And I close my eyes and I'm walking, and it's beautiful presence. And I open my eyes and the world of form comes back into view. And then like you can feel the adrenaline like launch through the body. It's like this energetic jolt and a jumping back. And the reason that happened is I look right down at my feet where I was walking as I opened my eyes. And there on the corner is a coiled, massive rattlesnake. And the reason I noticed it is it did this. Like it saw me, and it like took the stance of like, if you come a foot further, I'm going to fucking bite you. And literally my foot was about to step right in front of it. Close your eyes and walk on a trail in California. And that jolt of like, ah! And I felt that go through. And then immediately I was like, holy shit, look at that beautiful rattlesnake. And I took some pictures. I'll share them in the comments after we're done. And then I was like, ooh, look at this. And I'm just looking at this rattlesnake going, wow. And it's looking at me. Tongue's coming out, doing this in a very like smooth, undulating way. Not that quick flick. It's like that. He's tasting his world. He's creating his world. Looking out through those eyes is the same awareness, the same one being looking through my eyes. And I was like, fuck. That's not going to stop him from biting the fuck out of me, but it was a profoundly beautiful moment. So once again, trust in the universe. If I'd gotten bitten, then I would have trusted the next thing to happen, which would have been 911, go to the ER, get anti-venom, all of that. And they would have asked me, how'd you get bitten? I was walking with my eyes closed on a fucking trail. Um, yeah, it was something. All right, gang, I got to go. Now I am going to be late. I love you guys. Too much fun. Do me a favor, like, if I end up putting this on YouTube, hit the like, hit subscribe, turn on your notifications, leave a comment. That helps the algorithm get the video out, which is the most promotion I'll do. All right, guys, I love you. Until next time, we is out. Now, how do I turn this off? Let's see. I think I have to hit end live video, but sometimes it screws up. Bye.